next would like to talk about this array of objects. I'm not going to cover a lot of these details right now. Maybe later on we're going to be talking about them, but for now let's just have a look at this. What I would like to introduce now today is just one thing: how to create an array of objects. And we can, let's say, if we'd like to have, remember the class student that we used before, we can have an array of a lot of students. And I think I started talking about that thing, that concept just earlier. Maybe I don't remember which week, probably in the previous week or the week before. So anyway, if you'd like to create an array, we can create an array of anything. However, if we create an array of class data types, which are not primitive data types, we need to do something. We need to initialize every one of those elements for that array. Of course, actually, this one over here, we are just using, like, even though we have an array of 10,000, we're initializing only 2 instances, which is this 2 there. So this S actually, it points to an array of 10,000 spaces in the memory, and each of those spaces in the memory can hold an object of student, of type student. And in each of those, actually, it has actually this object, this instance values, which are, you know, the name, ID, and GPA, if you remember. So each one of them will have the same thing. And if I'd like to access one of those, as you can notice, S0.getGPA will display what? Well, which GPA? S0 means this is S0. Okay. So this is S0. And I'm going to, in this S0, I'm going to display the GPA 2.7. So this is going to give me 2.7. So you notice that the S, I cannot use S.getGPA because S is an array of students, so I cannot use that. But S0.getGPA is going to give me this one over there. S1.setName Muhammad is going to change this one to Muhammad. So that's what you need to, that's what I'd like you to talking about. So just this thing. So there's another example that I would like you to have a look at, because we are going to be talking about that next class, inshallah. This example of an employee, so which has like 3 private variables, private members: name, salary, and dependents. By dependents, we say the number of kids and wives. And public employee, this is called, what is this? When you have a method that has the same name than the class, this is a constructor. Yeah, and this is a constructor that takes how many arguments? 3. N for the name, S for the salary, and D for the dependent. So it is going to just put in those values, initializing the instance variables with those values. Okay. And there's something which is public void raise double amount, that takes an amount, and what it does, it just adds the amount to the salary. So that means you raised the salary of that employee by this amount. And get name, this is the get name is the getter is called, is this the mutator or the accessor? Whenever you say get, you access the variable content, so this is an accessor. Set, you change the value, this is a mutator because it mutates, it changes. Mutator, change, just keep this in, remember. Accessor, get. And the toString, remember, this is like the special method that you overload, you override to display a different way this object. Yes? Well, they are calling them getters and setters, but because we are using this book, there are some other terminology that is used, which are these mutators and accessors. I already, prior to this, I always used getters and setters. Yeah. But you can use them both. But if I ask you the question in the quiz, in the exam, what is an accessor? Well, you have to be able to answer that. Yes.
How to make two string for the two dimensional?
Well, you decide how you are going to display that. Well, actually, the two-dimensional array is just a data type. That this is not a class. The toString actually, first of all, in order to answer your question, toString is for the arrays. This method is for the class. So then you decide how you define that, how you display that class. This toString is not for one of the variables or an array of variables, an array of data types that are, either primitive or class data types. So the toString is not meant for just an array. So if, for example, if you have a class and in that class you have an array, then you'd like to use the toString, well, then maybe you're going just to display the array one item at a time. This will be the content of your toString. Did we have toString in the class matrix? Yes. I'm going to show inshallah next class. Well, let's still some time. Well, I'm going to stop here. Why we started with this company? I just would like you to be comfortable with this, because we're going to look at it inshallah after solving the second question of the assignment next class, about this class company, which, if you notice, this is a class that has an array of employees, and this is what I'd like to be dealing with. And we'd like to, as you can see, we're adding some employees, and when we add an employee, we're adding that employee, adding it inside of the array and incrementing whatever. So we're going to be talking about that inshallah next class. So first of all, the only thing that I'd like you now to remember, if there was one thing to memorize, if you declare an array of a class data type, like student, whatever, string, whatever you're using, a string is a special case, but any class data type, like student, employee, company, whatever, you have to initialize each one of the items before you can use them. The other primitive data types, they have some default values that you remember. For example, for float, int, long, all the default value is going to be 0, because this is a primitive data type. So even if you don't put any value inside of it, it is going to be 0. But for the class data type, if you put nothing inside of it, it's going to be null, the equivalent of 0 for objects. And if, for example, I write something like this, s2 dot set name or whatever I'm doing, and I try to execute this, set name, blah blah blah, whatever, this is going to raise an exception. This is not going to work because I never instantiated a new student in S2. I have one in S0 and S1, but in S2 I don't have it, so I cannot, this doesn't point to anything, so I cannot tell set name or get GPA or whatever. Before you can use this, you have to do this S2 is equal to new student, and then you put something inside of it if you'd like to put something inside of it. Okay, so always instantiate before using your variables when you're using that in an array. This is if you had to memorize only one thing for today. The second thing, just have a look at these because we're going to be talking about them inshallah next class.